this could be. Hi, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Environmental Science Department's at UCR's podcast. And I'm really looking forward to talking with you. I want to start out by giving a disclaimer that the University of California, Riverside is not endorsing this podcast or anything we say on it. It's just two colleagues having a conversation with one another about life and research. And I'm the host, Cowger. I'm a PhD student in Andrew Gray's lab, and I'd love you're welcome to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm a third year cellular, developmental, and molecular biology major. And some of the extracurriculars that I participate in at UCR is I am vice chair for ASUCR's Basic Needs Committee.
Awesome. What do you do in that committee?
So basically, for ASUCR Basic Needs Committee, it's so there's the Basic Needs Department, which everybody or slowly everybody is starting to know about because of COVID-19 or the pandemic. A lot of students have been affected very differently, such as financial aid. They might not be living on campus anymore, and
Right.
the money's taken away, or like there are people who lost jobs and they're food insecure. So
Oh, wow.
with students that are food insecure or financially insecure, we kind of have the resources for it, and the department kind of plays a big role, such as like our pantry. And if you did not know, I'm pretty sure if the students are going to listen to this, the Basic Needs Department will also give you a $50 Stater Bros gift card, because there is a Stater Bros near campus, as well as if you're out of state or, for example, in the Bay Area,
Yeah.
we also have a new option where it's a $50 e-Target gift card. So they'll give you a email or a form, and they'll tell you to sign it, and they'll send it to you. And that's kind of like a way to help near and far.
That is such a great resource and such important work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So what have you been up to in the past year since the pandemic started? What do you do in your free time besides school? I'm sure school takes up a lot of your time, but
Yeah, so I've been picking up a lot more hobbies during pandemic. I picked up a lot of cooking. I bought an air fryer. I bought like a rice cooker slash steamer, and I've been making a lot of new dishes, as well as I picked up embroidery. If you did not know, that's like needle and thread and like fabric, and just designing. I did like little tsum tsums.
oh,
I've been
cool.
picking up reading more. I feel like in college you don't have the time to like read like in your leisure time,
Right.
because you'll be reading like scientific papers, or just reading like articles for your lectures in general. You don't have that time to like just read for fun. So just doing that, as well as like exercising. One of the things that I've been doing in the summer was uh, we have like a Nintendo Switch back at home. So my sisters and I would play Just Dance, or there's also like videos that you can go, like you'll learn as you go. So if they do like a dance move that like, I don't know, you're like clapping up in the air, you would do it at the same time, and you would like, it's like really good hand-eye coordination too.
Yeah.
So
Those
that's what I've been doing.
dancing games are really hard.
No, it's like it's so fun and it's so active. There are times where you're like, oh, I never like this is a cool dance move, or I never knew like I could do this, because there are like times where you're playing a dancing game and it's like quote quote hard mode or
Yeah.
extreme mode, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I could do this, and you're like moving your feet really fast too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I'm just kind of I find myself getting more stiff as I get older. I like used to love to dance, and I'm just like my hand-eye coordination and stuff is starting to get worse. I guess I need to practice. Maybe I need to pick up one of those games.
No, like definitely one of the biggest like tips for quarantine is there's like the term that's being thrown around, Zoom fatigue, being on Zoom a
Yeah,
lot too. It really
yeah. It's
it
ironic
brings
we're
you
on Zoom right now. Yeah.
right now, but it brings you kind of like emotionally and mentally like down, like you're constantly going meeting after meeting. So like doing stretches or like getting a snack and trying to like be motivated and engaged during class is like something that I try to do right
Yeah.
now during the pandemic as well.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel that Zoom fatigue. I get that pretty often too. Um, yeah, I've been mostly going on runs. I go on like one run every day. That usually helps to reset me when I'm starting to feel like just don't have any motivation left. Um,
Do you just like run around the block or like
yep, yeah, I have this little 5K loop that I do once a day. It's or not every day, but a couple times a week. That's always that's always been good. Um, yeah, so I guess changing gears a little bit, I'm curious to hear how this academic year has been for you compared to previous years. You're a third year, finishing up your third year right now, and so I'm wondering.
I think there's definitely pros and cons for being online. I think a lot of us have mentioned it with like our friend groups, friends, friends, family, peers as well. Like, oh, how is studying for you? I personally think it's super interesting because now we're all online, and I'm pretty sure for a lot of classes as well, there's now more group meets as well as like discords. Discords like quote quote kind of like trendy social school group
Yeah.
um, type of platform for us to use. And even, like organization is really nice too. Like there can
Mm,
be an off topic, not related course, um, like not course related, and you can all say like, oh, let's play Among Us or let's play League of Legends or Valorant, because a lot of people play those PC games. And making a friend is it's not the same as being in person, because there are like instances where you can be in like university lecture hall and you can sit down and there's a person next to you and you can be like, hey, let's be friends and like talk it out. But I also know that there are like students who do make these Discord course server groups, and
mm,
it's not spread out to everyone, so it's kind of a disadvantage in a way as well.
right. Yeah, I could see that. It can get like kind of cliquish or something like that on Discord servers or yeah. Huh. Well, hopefully there's also some more open groups and stuff. I remember this time reminds me so much of when I was like 13, 14 and I started playing video games a whole lot. I was like totally addicted to RuneScape and a bunch of other online video games when they first got started. And I just remember like everybody that I knew was like a person in that video game. Like all my closest friends were like people that I'd hang out with on online. And yeah, these days it kind of seems like that too. I'm like, oh great, I'm gonna like hang out with my besties who I haven't seen in a year.
Yeah.
um,
But yeah, like I also think academically another con is probably like research labs or interactions with professors. I think in person is definitely another feeling of interaction compared to on Zoom. Um, for example, like with the professional meeting, or like you're meeting for like an interview or an internship, and already you have a noisy background, or um, your internet connection is stable, that's already a big like cutting factor for some of them. They're like, oh, you don't have internet, like connect unstable internet connection. Okay, you're like disqualified because we need you to do this. Or you have a noisy background, I can't even talk to you, and they'll like disqualify you immediately compared to being in person and actually interacting them um, with like a kind of like even standpoint. Like, oh, like also with like some professors too, they also have like unstable internet connection as well, and then they'll cancel their lectures or they'll cancel their office hours, and it's kind of like, oh, like what do I do type of situation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you know, I've heard through the grapevine that undergrads are going to be able to work in research labs sometime, like, maybe
in this,
even next quarter. Maybe even
yeah, that's
next quarter. Have you been hearing that too?
yeah, one of my professors for upper division courses, he's mentioned about it, but that's still like kind of like I guess on the down low.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
not officially said, so we can't officially,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's going to be so great. Seriously, research labs are missing undergraduates more than you can believe. We like undergraduates are really the like main workforce in the labs, like doing a lot of the day-to-day things. and
Mhm.
and it's been really hard with that. Like some labs used to have, like 6 undergrads working in them and then 2 graduate students, and there's like fish that they have to take care of every day, for example. And now it's just 2 people who have to like work, like go into the lab every single day to like feed the fish, clean the fish tanks, do all these things that it used to be like 8 people doing that. So yeah, we want you back as
Yeah,
soon
that
as
was like
possible.
no, like that was the biggest like con that I got during pandemic. Um, I felt I felt so like oh like academically down, like kind of like, oh, I'm not up to par with myself because of like not getting a research lab or position. But
Right.
it also gave me more time to focus on my academics. I during like freshman year and sophomore year, I had to balance extracurriculars and work and school. And then I thought like adding a research lab would just be completely out of proportion. But now my conditions are like way more flexible now too. I think that's with everybody's schedule. It's way more flexible. Um, you can easily just pop into a Zoom. Like this might be a little bit like unprofessional, but like waking up out of your bed at like what 7:59 a.m. and you're already in class compared to running
Yeah.
late or waking
Yeah.
up super early. uh, I know that one of my classes was going to be at the UCR Extension Center, and I live on campus, so actually having to wake up at like what 6:45 in the morning just to walk all the way across to the UCR Extension Center. That's like crazy. But now with Zoom, right? It's just like I just need 5 minutes to set everything up, and then that's
Yeah.
like good.
Yeah, for work efficiency, I think it's definitely a plus as long as you can manage burnout.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I have not been like extremely successful at that personally. I can be really efficient like some days. Some days I'm just like I can get done 10 times as much things as I could do on a normal day, but other days it's like, ooh, this is I'm just too tired. Too tired of staring at a screen. You're too tired of being on Zoom or whatever. So
yeah. I think that's like the other con for it.
yeah. Um, so you had talked a little bit about research labs, and I'm curious to hear if you've had any success getting involved in any research labs during this last year, or how you've done that, how you've been able to like continue your research. I know you've been working on a paper with me, and you've seems like you have a lot of really advanced scientific writing skills and scientific quantitative skills as well. So that's been really great working with you on that. I'm wondering if you have any other things that you've been doing.
So I just signed up for the UCR undergraduate symposium, but
Oh,
the thing is
cool.
I'm not in a research lab, so I have to talk to the higher ups to make sure, and I'm pretty sure a lot of undergraduates as well, they wanted to find like a research lab for this year, but since everything is pandemic wise, right, it's so
Right.
limited to find one.
Yeah.
Um, but like learning all of these skills like scientifically and whatnot, I think it's more towards like being in an upper division course or reading like scientific articles in your own time.
Yeah.
um, Kind of interesting because you see a lot of the knickknacks of scientific papers and you're like, wait, this is not something I understand, so you like
Right.
have to go backtrack, or um, you realize that I don't know too much about this, or this is really interesting, and you keep on like developing more and more like into the rabbit hole
Yeah.
of papers. As well as for a lot of professors, they do a lot of interesting work. For example, um, with one of my professors, he's a virology professor, and he was talking about being and doing research with cucumber mosaic viruses, and like that's something I thought that was interesting because um, a lot of my classes right now are super interconnected. So everything that I've learned from one class goes to the other, then goes to the other. So it's all linked.
Yeah.
Um, so actually knowing your material as well really helps compared to like sometimes you're in a class and you're like, what am I doing? What did I
Mm,
understand material type of situation? So
right.
yeah.
I wanted to ask about the undergraduate symposium. I didn't realize that you had to be like officially affiliated with the lab to do that.
Um,
That's a qualification of joining that.
I went to the information session, and they didn't mention that that was a requirement.
Oh,
But
okay.
I don't know if it was like a, like a low key requirement
Oh, yeah.
that
You could
like,
totally say that you're affiliated with our lab because you're doing research with us right now on the paper.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then I would have to like, would I have to still continue with the environmental manuscript as well, or would I go to like the previous research?
I don't know. I guess we could talk after this at some point. We can follow up through email and try to figure out look at the undergraduate symposium. But I'm happy to help you achieve that goal in any way that I can. Yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So another thing you said that you read scientific papers in your free time, and I'm just really impressed by that because like I didn't. I honestly didn't like reading scientific papers until I was like fully graduated. And then I started missing science. And then I was like, oh man. And then for some reason, I just started reading papers in my free time when, I was like in between undergrad and graduate school. So I'm just curious, like, how did that interest start for you? And how did you how do you get yourself into reading a scientific paper? They're quite dense. I mean, it's quite an acquired taste to read them, honestly.
So, like, one of my biggest career goals is to be a research scientist as well as a professor. And
Awesome.
as like the generations go on. I'm also a tutor right now for
Oh,
third
cool.
graders. So like actually understanding their comprehension of things, that's like comparing my generation to their generation, right? And you realize how much you have to like be simplistic now.
Hmm.
Like there's the whole like ideology of college 4 years before. Like college when you were an undergraduate is way different than
Hmm.
when I was an undergraduate.
Okay.
Um, as well as like the way to get an A is way easier than back then.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I could believe
So
it. I've heard about like Chegg and this kind of stuff, and that none of that existed when I was in undergrad, or I didn't know about it. So
yeah, like before there isn't really like Chegg or Khan Academy or like a lot of these internet resources, right?
right,
That wasn't here back then. And now like everything's out here. If you want to advance yourself, you can. You just have
right.
to like you just have to motivate yourself to do that. So one of the biggest like I guess kind of starts to reading scientific paper was just like upper division class, to be honest, because they assigned you to read these papers
Hmm.
and you're wait, I don't even understand this.
Yeah.
um, so you have to so as a person, if you don't understand, you either forget about it and you're like, I don't even want to learn this anymore, let's focus on something else.
Right.
You continue to dive into it like, okay, I don't understand, what if this is on the like the incentive of it is like, what if this is on my exam, what if this is
Right.
on my,
Right. Right.
right? You have to delve in deeper into your paper that you're reading. And I like the idea of simplifying it for myself as well as like for your peers. So I for this quarter I've been doing 3 presentations
Hmm.
out of the 5 classes that I've been taking. So with that in mind, doing a presentation and presenting it to other people, um, it's way easier if it's simplistic, if there's an analogy, um, or like you don't use too much scientific jargon. Like, for example, if I said GFP, right? What could GFP stand for?
Right.
Like for pink,
Yeah.
like random acronym.
Yeah.
If I say like, oh, fluorescent light, right? Like
Right.
more people are going to know about it. Or if I
Right.
say
Right.
glow sticks, glow, like a little kid is able to understand it.
Right.
So reading these papers and trying to simplify it for myself, it makes me more intrigued about science because
Yeah.
now I understand it. And if I can understand it, then I can teach it to someone, and that's going to make me more successful um, as a person, I guess, because you can
Mm-hmm.
actually teach people. That's like the career goal in mind, as well as like, oh, I actually like it's like so much win-win conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's it's like you learn the material, you can teach it to someone else, you're probably going to ace your class, and this is going to retain in your brain for a really long time because you've taught it to someone, you've done all of these things,
Right.
as well as like the simple analogies or acronyms or stories that you have with science. I know for like a lot of my biology classes, there's a lot of processes that you have to remember.
Yeah.
So you would have, like little knickknacks of like there's like gluconeogenesis and it's like all of these names. So I'm like good girls and then like there's gross guys, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Um, but it still like retains like okay, this is the story or like this is the thing like
Right.
um, that people will understand or will know. So if I have to go back to that topic, I go back into my notebook. I'm like, oh yeah, good, like good girls, gross guys. That's what I remember. So
Yeah.
it's so transfer that compared to like, oh, this process again, I have to learn back from the basics.
Right.
So yeah, like simplifying everything is the way to go, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good skill. Definitely being able to like digest complicated topics and summarize, synthesize them. That's something we practice in graduate school a lot. Like that's like our the biggest thing for us to figure out is how to read scientific science writing, how to give a presentation in 15 minutes on something that nobody in the room knows anything about, those kind of things. um, yeah, it sounds like you're way ahead of the curve. You're going to be very successful, I'm sure, in your pursuits to be a professor one day. I'm sure of it. I share that dream too. So maybe we'll be colleagues at some point. Um, that'll be great. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about your goals with being a professor and stuff. Are you looking for graduate programs to get into and things after graduation?
Yeah, I am looking through a lot of the graduate programs and like what best fits me because I realized like 1 year that's really close. And then apparently this year, with a lot of my seniors that are graduating, they've mentioned that the GRE was waived. So they didn't get to experience the test. So, and
Mm,
that's how like a lot of people get their information with their upperclassmen.
right.
But if they haven't done it, how are you supposed to know type of situation?
Yeah.
So, um, trying to see like which path is like best or which school is the best. For example, in high school, they would always tell you like, oh, there's these college programs. There's this college website that you can go to, and that's going to show you what best fits yourself compared to people who usually talk about like medical school or like already getting the degree and applying to get jobs. Like that's mostly um, what a lot of people get into, especially for science, the science field. They're like, oh, I'm already pre-med, like pre-med. I want to go to med school or I want to go to law school already. I feel like graduate school is something that is mentioned, but not mentioned enough
Right.
to students. So it's kind of hard finding like the resources, details, and information to see which program would be perfect for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll please reach out when you are while you continue to look for graduate programs and stuff. I can share some resources that I used when I was getting in. I know it can be really daunting trying to figure out. I like the best advice I think I got was to try to, and you're already reading academic papers, so this will be easier for you than it was for me at that time. But yeah, like finding research that you're really interested in and that you think you'd want to like dedicate a lot of time to, because PhD is a lot of time. It's like at least 4 years. Um,
Yep.
and and then finding the people who do that work and then just emailing them and being like, hey, I love the research that you do, I'd love to talk with you about opportunities. I want to do the kind of research you're doing. Maybe you have opportunities as for graduate students in your lab, stuff like that. That's pretty much how it works. And for the most part, I mean, there are some like departments where you more apply to the department than talk to professors, but I'd say that's less common. You're almost always kind of reaching out to professors and stuff, having conversation with them. Yeah, and if you know you want to be a professor and you're like really sure about that, I'd recommend just going straight for a PhD because you can do that in the United States compared to like in Europe, you have to get a master's and then you get a PhD for the most part. Um, but here you can go straight to a PhD instead of doing the master's, and that usually saves about a year of time if you're running pretty fast. So, and it's not necessary that if you get a master's degree, you'll take, the same, like some people get a master's in 2 years, and then it just takes 3 years to get the PhD. Um, so then they get it at like typical normal time, which is like 5 years. Um, but you could also go straight for a PhD and then maybe graduate in 4 years even.
Yeah, we'll see.
So yeah, time time is of the
Essence.
yeah, I guess so. We need to start getting paid like real money sooner or later. Also, graduate school doesn't pay anything, so but you should get paid to go to graduate school. That's the main thing. Don't pay for graduate school.
Yes, I've heard that from a lot of peers.
Yeah.
You've mentioned like get paid to go to grad school. Don't pay to go to
Yeah.
grad school.
Yeah, don't
And
pay. You can get paid. You definitely can get paid to go to grad school. So, and they'll pay for all of your healthcare, tuition, and like a living stipend. It will be a very modest, very or meager. I don't know what the right term is. It's gonna be small. It's gonna be a small living stipend, but you'll get by.
yeah,
And we're trying to change that. We're trying to make it more of a living wage. So hopefully
yeah,
by the time you start, it'll be throughout the country will be better wages for
yeah.
graduate students.
There's a lot of like talk about um living wages right now because of um the whole like political topic of Biden not like passing the minimum wage
Mm,
for it to be $10 an hour.
right.
And just quotes and messages of like people not giving people not getting the amount of living wage is like really scary. Or a lot of the stories that are represented on social media is really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a problem that's been going on for a long time. I mean, the minimum wage hasn't been changed in so many years, and it's unbelievable that people can still live on that. I lived on minimum wage for quite a while, and it was, now looking back on it, I'm like, I ate top ramen every day, for like years, and I
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, is that good for you? Like, I don't. Is
Mm,
that like really living? I don't know.
good. That doesn't sound good for you. Yeah. So it's like if you're living like that's why I'm really passionate about basic needs. There are students that are living like that, right? Like
Right.
top ramen, okay?
Yeah.
And like kind of like the university is paying for all of this. Like they have your tuition money. Get all the resources you can. So
Right.
go to art pantry if needed. They'll give you a gift card. Like a lot of the resources are mentioned
Yeah.
um, as well. So it's kind of it's something that I'm pretty proud of about UCR is like we care a lot about the students'
Yeah.
basic needs as well. So that's why I'm like, wow, like this university really cares about the students and like having um the like food security for that or financial security um stabilizes the student life of many lives, so
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I actually, when after like the first top ramen year, I ended up getting on food stamps while I was in school. And that like drastically changed my quality of life, because I then had like, I think it was like $100 to $200 a month to spend on groceries, instead of the like $50 that I was able to afford before, you know? And yeah, just like total change. Then I could actually eat like real food.
yeah.
So yeah. Also, if I don't know what the resources are like for that in California. I was in Iowa, and they basically, food stamps were, if you were working and going to school full time, you could get food stamps. That was the rule there, so that was really good.
Yeah. For California, it should be CalFresh. Um, if needed, there is just go to basicneeds.ucr.edu, and that's like a lot of the resources that we have here on campus.
Yeah.
Um, and one of them is actually meeting with like a CalFresh ambassador,
Oh,
and
nice.
you would talk to them about like, oh, like if you are a full-time student, if you're doing this and that, and that'll check off the requirements, and then you would get the card. So
Yeah, awesome. So, what are your hopes for next year? What do you hope to see different um, next year in the fall for
um,
school wise?
I think everybody is really excited and ecstatic if the university will be back in person or at least hybrid classes for next school year. I think a lot of us think that this pandemic has kind of driven us crazy at
Yeah,
points throughout the year. Um, Another big thing is like being at a research, like being in a research lab, getting that experience and talking to the professors, being on campus,
yeah,
the like livelihood of it um, is so different than being in person and trying to recreate that. Like it's still the same vibe, but it's not, it's like being present in the moment. Once you're present in the moment, everything just feels differently. You have way more emotions of compared to like being behind. It's like the analogy of you had like this dream vacation to like what Europe, Australia. Um, Seeing it through the screen is so different than seeing it in real life.
yeah. It is. Agree.
And I'm very, yeah, like I'm very ecstatic for transfers, freshmen, or people first, like first stepping in on campus for the first time to experience that moment.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, me
that's the,
too. Mm. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Is there anything you'd like to see different for the fall quarter, like that than fall of 2019, for example? Have we like is there anything from COVID times that you'd like to bring into the next year of education?
I think one of the biggest things is um, now we all know what a pandemic feels like, right?
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of the things is I feel like some professors, they're like, this is the ideal thing, having Zoom classes, being a hybrid class, or um, there might be some cons too, like I don't have student participation compared to in-person classes, or I don't have people going to my office hours type of like um, environment setup or conditions or situations. Um, One of the biggest things is adaptability. So for example, I feel like some courses could just stay online,
Mm.
um, such as, for example, um, a lot of people they've mentioned like a lot of breath courses just being online. It's very
Mm.
easy. Everybody has to do it, and it might save a lot of time. For example, if everything is asynchronous, and I'm hoping that everybody watching this has had an asynchronous class, that gives you so much leisure time to find a time. You can do it at like 3 in the morning for God knows what.
Right.
Like you've
Yeah.
had like a really rough day, you've had work, whatever events that you've had that day and you have to watch the lecture, you can watch it at 3 a.m. And it would be totally fine because it's not like during work or not during another lecture or an extracurricular activity that usually happens on a specific day. Or if you have like family events or things to do, it's not interfering with that. And a lot of students really like that about like online university, I guess. So that's like one of the biggest things that I think a lot of students would like, as well as with labs. Labs shouldn't be online.
Yeah.
I saw like a few videos about there being a lab program online. There's like the little spatula and like the particles of the solution and you putting it into the test um into like the test tubes and like shaking the bottle, and it's literally like your like digital hand shaking the
Oh
flask.
no.
That's not the that's
Yeah.
like it's not the same thing. Like there's safety precautions, there's things to consider as well. Like
Yeah.
this solution that you are not having your goggles in, what if it's an eye irritant and it can cause like a lot of like lethal like
Right.
um, after like lethal after effects of containing or being in the same room as this. um,
Yeah.
you're not under a safety hood. You're in front of your laptop, assuming that this is like this. Um,
Right.
the importance of it, and asking your like lab TAs about what is happening as well. That's like something that I feel like a lot of undergrads do take into consideration. Like, okay, this solution is pink. It's not supposed to, like it's the little like hydration drop where this is like really dark pink. It's not light pink as I needed it to be. What's wrong with it? A
Right.
lab might just have the program on it and you can't talk to your TA.
Right.
And if you can't ask for help, like that already puts you at a disadvantage in an environment where you can't ask for help. It's like very secluded and you want to be inclusive. So that's a thing that I would
Yeah.
like to implement if I could for next.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. In-person labs are the way to go. I agree. I don't learn anything really about lab work from textbooks or even reading methods in papers. It can be very misleading how complicated things are until you actually get into it and you start like you making doing it with your hands, and then you notice all of the little intricacies of what's going on. And it's like, how do you use a pipette, right? Like if you take a pipette and you like squeeze it down too far, you can end up like putting your solution up in the tube, and you can end up like not having it measured appropriately and stuff. So um, yeah, all of that can uh, all those kind of things you can't like read in a textbook or like learn from like video online or whatever. I totally agree. Well, hope to see you next year, and please, when you're thinking about labs to work in once you're allowed to come back to campus, please consider the gray lab. We'd love to work with you if that's of interest to you. But also,
Yeah,
we're happy to support you in whatever research pursuits you want to go down. So if you need letters to get into other labs or whatever, just let us know.
no problem.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and I really appreciate your time on 6 o'clock on a Friday. So yeah, thanks a lot. I will. We'll be sharing this on YouTube and also in the environmental science department and through the environmental science club to other undergraduates there. You're welcome to also share this through. I know you're in the another department, CMD. So you're welcome to share it there as well, and we'll blast it out on Twitter. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn off the recording.